Over from the air, we see Canada's third city, our own Vancouver. Vancouver is just over 60 years old. Quite young as cities go. It's a great city with a greater future and growing fast. It stands today a tribute to those earliers who foresaw its possibilities. But those bewhiskered gentlemen, broad as their outlook was, could not foresee all the needs of a civilization 60 years ahead. For 60 years ago, the horseless carriage was a dream, and 20-story skyscrapers were still in the experimental stage. The concept of speed, automobiles, elevators, and tall buildings, concentrated in the area of downtown Vancouver, probably never entered the mind of the early town planner, so he must be forgiven when he laid out streets as his father had done before him, adequate for his day. But 60 years have passed. The streets designed for horse traffic and two-story buildings are today required to serve 6, 10, and often 20-story buildings. This new era evolved with the automobile. Buildings soared skyward, but the streets to handle the new traffic, the great masses of people, stayed the same. Crowding was inevitable. The increased circulation of people attracted more businesses, hotels, department stores, commercial shops, theaters. These again in turn attracted still more people. The lady shopper for her new dress, the farmer from the valley, the tourist, the pleasure seeker. And so today our downtown streets, designed for the horse and buggy days, are called upon to serve the needs of the 20th century era of speed. Nobody in particular can be blamed. It just grew that way. But downtown congestion is a vital problem today, threatening the economy of our city. A problem for the individual motorist, the Town Planning Commission, and a still bigger problem for a transportation company and its passengers. The healthy commerce of any city depends upon people, the moving, spending masses. People must be free to come and go. They must have easy access to business centers. The answer to this lies in good mass transportation. The BC Electric has dedicated itself to the job of providing this service in Vancouver. It's a tough job. The problems are great. Let's look at some of these problems from a public transit point of view. Vancouver was born and grew up on a peninsula, but development quickly forced it beyond the limits of its original setting. Bridges were thrown across False Creek to serve the rapid expansion, and more bridges followed in time to the north and the west. The terminal streets of these bridges, adequate or not, were thus forced into the categories of arterial highways. Today, a bridge span opens. All traffic stops. Public transit connections are upset all along the route. It may be hours before schedules are back to normal. Congested traffic at another point is stopped by an accident. Not serious, perhaps, but traffic snarls up. Public transit is delayed again. The bus driver can't do anything about it, but people waiting for that bus a mile away don't know the circumstances. Fires occur frequently. Here is an emergency. Public transit stops again. A funeral procession crosses House Street. Naturally, traffic stops, including McDonald buses trying to maintain connections with the 41st Avenue. There are dozens of such similar public service delays every day in downtown Vancouver. Rush hours from 4:30 to 6 o'clock are without doubt the most difficult problem in public transit. In this period, there are thousands of people in the downtown area with one single thought: to get home. 65% travel by public transit. The normal rush hour delays of public vehicles carrying this majority is now seriously intensified through automobile congested streets. Actual figures show that 30 private cars carry between them only 45 people at rush hours, and yet take up a full block of road space. One single trolley coach carries the same number of people. Through the eyes of a traffic engineer, the trolley coach is actually 30 times as efficient as the private car. The general problem is increased by necessary cross-traffic control, which cuts thoroughfare efficiency in Vancouver by another 50%. But Vancouver is not alone. Large cities all over the world are having the same troubles. It's the same in Seattle or Singapore. Fully alive to the menace of greater congestion in Vancouver, civic authorities have taken every possible step to keep traffic on the move. New building bylaws call for off-street parking and loading zones so that trucks and commercial vehicles can operate without holding up general traffic. The situation is tough on the private motorist and getting tougher. Nevertheless, speaking without prejudice, the problem of public transit, the job of moving the masses efficiently in Vancouver and in many other major cities, is made almost hopeless by congestion due to narrow streets and heavy vehicular traffic. In spite of this, the motorist has his rights. He has problems too. Thousands of private cars enter the downtown area every day. Parking is tough because parking lots and garages are jammed. Expensive too. Costs just to drive downtown and park all day average about 70 cents a day and are on the increase. Public transit operating costs are up too. Increased wages, higher material and equipment costs all contribute. But rush hour expense is a major factor in public transit operation. During rush hours, everyone wants to move at once. A transportation company is obliged to maintain twice as many buses just to handle rush hours from 4 to 6. Millions of dollars tied up in equipment which stands idle much of the time. Anticipating rush hour periods, buses and operators are dispatched to key points to await call into operation. This is necessary in the public interest. Nevertheless, it's an extra expense in transit operations. Vehicle schedules must be operated in early morning and evening, yet in these dull hours, fares total only a fraction of operating costs. Weather can be a problem. On hot days, the people of Vancouver head for the beaches. Special transportation must be provided, and the same thing applies at the parks. Equipment, operators, and traffic supervisors have to be called suddenly. Special guides are engaged to provide tickets and information. Events like Exhibition Week are generally known in advance, but nonetheless they call for a complete rerouting of equipment to handle the crowds. It seems simple on the face of it, but the behind-scenes work is colossal. Everyone loves a parade. They're great fun, too. But hours of time are required to get the transit system back to normal operation. In spite of appearances, the payload barely covers the extra cost of operations. All these varying factors create a great and costly background problem in public transportation. Behind the scenes, there are scores of men like these, whose job it is to try to anticipate, to outguess the ever-changing requirements of the people in a growing, changing city. One of the toughest jobs is the arranging of shifts for operators. These sheets represent the timetable of a single shift. Operating equipment requires a lot of manpower. Behind the scenes are hundreds of others perpetually at work, keeping equipment in service, performing other necessary duties. All these basic problems are a heavy responsibility, a responsibility alike of the transportation company and its employees, civic authorities, and the public, who must all cooperate if we are to achieve a reliable transit service at a reasonable cost. What is the answer? In 1945, the BC Electric announced its $50 million modernization program, and from this unprecedented figure, set aside $14 million for the renovation of the entire transportation system of the Lower Mainland. A staff of transportation experts and engineers went to work to draft out an entire new layout for the system. Types of equipment, schedules, and routes were all factors to be considered. Based upon masses of statistical data gathered by the company's own research department, plans were discussed and redrafted in endless meetings. To provide a check on the company's own research, expert traffic consultants from Toronto, Cincinnati, and New York were engaged. New routes had to be right. Based on the hard experience of other major cities, the resulting plan called for mass transportation designed to link the entire Lower Mainland in a vast system of integrated services. The results of this intensive program of research and planning were finally brought forward for consideration by civic and municipal authorities. Civic legal advisors, town planning authorities, traffic engineers, civic engineers, and police traffic experts all contributed their experience and advice to revise and reshape the blueprint into the most practical plan and to arrange the timing of its progress to bring about the new developments in an orderly manner as quickly as possible. Franchise fees to be paid by the BC Electric were arranged to make a just and proper contribution toward paving of streets planned as transit routes. No stone was left unturned by these leaders of civic affairs to ensure the best coordinated transportation system for the people of the Lower Mainland. The numerous details took time to negotiate. Meetings followed meetings. Pending final approval by civic authorities, the company placed protective orders for new equipment, so that when full agreements were reached, new equipment was already on hand. Foresight that put Vancouver well ahead of many Canadian cities in post-war modernization. North Vancouver was one of the first to authorize the changeover to modern transit. The old streetcars, which had seen the community grow around them and had strained through the years of war emergency, left the ferry wharf and retired to their barns for the last time. Shiny new buses took the road to carry North Vancouver's growing population. Routes were opened into new districts. Trans-bridge service was started, offering inducement to many new home builders who prefer the grace of rural living. Service in the area was speeded up. The decisive action by city authorities enabled the BC Electric to get underway with the first stages of the plan for Vancouver. One of the first important steps was the establishment of a new intercity bus terminal at Larwell Park, one of the most modern travel centers on the North American continent. This strategic new location now enables travelers to arrive in the city center without undue hampering of traffic in the downtown area. A further development in intercity travel was the extension of services in the Fraser Valley by Pacific Stage Line. This move was followed closely by the introduction of an east-west bus route connecting Main Street with Nanaimo Road along Terminal Avenue. The 41st Avenue single-line streetcar service was replaced by bus service between West Boulevard and Marine Drive, while the South Granville bus line was equipped with new buses and rescheduled to connect with services entering Marpole. At the same time, a program of conversion and extension on the main Marpole bus route went into effect. Here was evidence of the plan taking shape, a plan that will, by 1950, have retired most of the old-type streetcars and opened new routes to serve and to anticipate the growing needs of the entire Lower Mainland area. Meanwhile, plans for the replacement of streetcars with trolley coaches were going into effect. The first concrete step in conversion resulted in the removal of streetcars on Fraser Avenue and the commencement of bus service. This interim change was necessary to allow for the removal of old streetcar tracks and the paving of Fraser Avenue for the trolley coaches soon to follow. The deadline for service was August the 16th, 1948. That date marked the inauguration of Vancouver's first trolley coach service from Fraser and Marine down through the city center and up to Cambie and 29th and return. There are 50 buses on this 10-mile route alone, costing $21,000 each. The smart new equipment, with its all-cream color scheme and increased service, are proving an inducement to many private car owners to go to town the trolley coach way. Many are finding it cheaper and an actual time saver. The cost to introduce Fraser-Cambie service, $1.5 million. The Denman-Davie route, now in service with trolley coaches, followed Fraser-Cambie as a major change. Gas buses took temporary service on Guilford and Harwood Streets, while the thoroughfares were reconditioned for trolley coach operations. Specially designed power machinery removed the old rails, which had served the people of the West End for nearly half a century. Hundreds of tons of steel on its way to the scrap pile. Tons of paving bricks, their service over, were trucked away to be put to other uses. In their places, concrete foundations were poured for the new roadbed. Thousands of yards of concrete were needed for the two streets to provide a level, massive roadbed to carry the smart new equipment. Blacktop surfacing completed the job. The Denman-Davie route took on the new look, like Fraser-Cambie, a bright, clean thoroughfare. The company contributed to the cost of removing rails and resurfacing. The new transit services can only be inaugurated when streets are reconditioned to handle them, not just a matter of repaving. War conditions and expansion of the city necessitate new sewers, increased water mains before repaving can be done. Transit improvement by the BC Electric, therefore, is only possible as this work is completed. Civic authorities, meanwhile, are bending every effort to keep ahead of scheduled conversions. The transformation on Davie, as on Fraser-Cambie and other routes, required that thousands of old-type trolley poles had to be removed and replaced with new steel ones, specially designed for trolley coach service. This presented, too, an opportunity for the improvement of street lighting. The new trolley poles serve the two purposes. Good planning and sound engineering have played an important part in helping to maintain scheduled changeovers. For instance, in stringing wires, this ingenious gimmick, followed by tower trucks, allowed crews to hang two trolley wires in one single continuous run. In this way, the operation of stringing wires was conducted with a minimum of traffic tie-up in downtown streets. The new wiring system, combined with new lighting, creates a clean, modern street, a credit to Canada's third city. On August 16, 1948, the 41st Avenue East-West route connecting Kerrisdale with the Joyce Road area went into service. This historical ceremony, held in Memorial Park, sponsored by the Kerrisdale Chamber of Commerce and leaders of the South Hill community, displays the heartfelt feeling of achievement of these communities at being linked with a direct route which promotes friendly association and business enterprise. This new route makes connections with at least 12 separate routes running to city center and shortens east-west travel time for all districts on the southern slope. 41st Avenue is yet only sparsely settled, but in this advanced service, we see timely evidence of the company's faith in Canada's city of the West. New routes, new personnel, new schedules all require coordinating. Supervisors with specially equipped cars make continuous checks on service. If vehicles are held up downtown, these men have the authority to reroute equipment to offset the tie-up. New trolley coaches in increasing numbers require electrical energy. Plans therefore called for yet another expenditure, the addition of power stations to supply energy for the special requirements of trolley coach operations. Scotia Substation in Mount Pleasant was built at a cost of $200,000 to provide direct current for this purpose. Bus operators and vehicles, trolley wires and power are the obvious requirements of good mass transportation. Underlying all these are other vital requisites necessary to provide efficient operations. For example, garage facilities. On 41st Avenue, the Oak Ridge Transit Center, a 13.5-acre parking area and service depot, was constructed to provide maintenance service and parking for transit vehicles. The administration building will house special training quarters for new personnel and drivers will receive their daily schedules here. To keep equipment looking smart, the buses drive through this ingenious wash rack for their regular scrub and wash. In the garage, modern equipment of every kind is on hand to assist the experienced tradesmen in keeping equipment in tip-top condition. It takes many crafts, many skills to keep a transit operation rolling smoothly. That few BC electric vehicles suffer from mechanical troubles on the road is a tribute to the skill, experience, and regard for public convenience by the employees of the company. Few people comment when the service operates smoothly. That it does so much of the time can be credited to the ability and enthusiasm of these men, your many neighbors and mine, who help in some capacity to keep the wheels rolling, whether they operate vehicles or use their experience gained on the road to train new personnel in this ever-increasing service. All the great cities on this continent have learned through hard experience that the answer to metropolitan congestion lies in the creation of an effective, dependable mass transportation system, a system to be used to the fullest to keep unnecessary traffic from crowding downtown streets. Here in our own communities, the BC Electric is doing its part in the great overall plan to help keep the areas it serves growing and thriving, and is going all out to furnish the finest mass transit system that human endeavor can provide.